In Conversation is a collection of interviews with fashion photographers, models, makeup artists and stylists, as they give an insight into the industry and talk about some of their most inspiring images.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, thanks for sitting with me to do it. So, welcome to In Conversation. As you've probably seen with some of the ones, it's a chance for me to sit down with models or
Hmm.
makeup artists or stylists or other creatives, and it just gives us a chance, or gives you a chance to talk through some of your work and then where you're up to so far and how you got started your career and everything.
Yep.
Um, so, yeah, let's start with your background. So, first of all, just kind of where did it all begin, really?
So I like how I started modeling and everything.
Well, let's go back to
Oh,
like your kind of maybe like
oh,
your early roots, like growing up. Yeah, we're going right back to the
okay,
start.
even further back. So basically, so yeah, I grew up in well, near Manchester in Chester, and I come from like an Italian family, so it's very sort of crazy all the time, especially with my grandparents. My nonno's Neapolitan and my nonna's Roman, but I was definitely brought up a lot more Italian. So yeah, and then yeah, just that's my background.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so what sort of like with the is there certain kind of traits you think you've picked up from like the Italian roots? Is there?
Oh, probably how loud I am.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm very loud.
yeah.
I think definitely that's sort of um, presence that Italians have. My nonno, I'm a lot like my nonno, and I look a lot like my nonno as well. So I think I'm, I'm really happy in that sense because I love him to bits, and I think the way that he is, he's so open and friendly, and like I just watch him with his friends, and he's so loud and he's vivacious, and he's got this passion for life, and I really the way that he grew up because he grew up in an orphanage in Avellino actually, and then he came over here when he was 18, and he worked from having nothing as an orphan, and he's I look at him and the way he's created his life, and he's got this family, and he's he came over here, he didn't know English, and I look at him, and when I'm having like a bad day and I'm like, oh, life's so hard, I look at my nonno and I think, no, it's not that hard. It could be harder. So I think definitely having coming from I'm like third generation immigrant, that sort of background really has sort of shaped me in that sense. And it's really it is a lot of my identity, and because a lot of people do say, "Oh, being Italians are your entire identity," and I go, "Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
Embrace it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
embrace it, and it's it's I love it. I love the way they are, and I'm very proud,
Hmm.
and to have for my grandparents and the life that they've set up in order for me to it's great.
Do
Yeah.
you get to go over to Italy much?
Yeah, well, I used to go a lot when I was little. So my nonno's from the south, so we used to go there a lot, and it's a tiny little village called Carabrito in the middle of nowhere,
Hmm.
and it was brilliant. It was so good, and I just used to they just used to let me out, and I'd run around,
Yeah.
and I just it was definitely I really think back to those times, and they're really like I hold them dear in my heart. And even when I go back to Italy now, it's so nostalgic, and it does feel like home. Obviously, the UK is my home, and I love the UK. But when I go back to Italy, and just their way of life, and their way
Hmm.
of thinking, and the way they look at life, and their outlook, um, yeah, I definitely feel like I have such a draw to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been to Italy a few times, and there is. I mean, I don't have those like roots or anything, but there is
Mm.
still. There's something about there, the kind of the lifestyle and the
Like
people, and yeah, it's
yeah, it's
really
like that
appealing.
Dolce Vita sort of,
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, like especially like everything's so go 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 all the time, and they take the time to sit back and just enjoy life, and to enjoy food, and to enjoy your family, and to enjoy being in love with being in life, and having, you know, it's not all, it doesn't always have to be work all the time, and, you know, keeping up appearances and things like that. And I think, yeah, I know I'm very, very happy that I come from a family that I do. And even my mum, because she's English, but she came into that Italian family and really embraced it. And she's an angel. I love her. She's like my best friend. And she's so bubbly and happy. And I think it shows. I'm very giggly. And I sit there sometimes and I think people must find me annoying.
No, well, I think it's a good, well, we'll get into, like, as it goes into the model, but I think it's a good trait to have, like, career-wise, but especially with the modelling and stuff. And I think to have that confidence and that sort of be quite sort of outgoing and stuff like that. I think it's a good thing.
I'm so glad in that sense, because it is that, as you say, like with the modelling, like, you know, you're working with different people every single time you work. You know, I have to walk into a room and introduce myself every single time. And I'm glad in a way that I can do that, because you know, it's you sit down with a hairstylist or a photographer, or, you know, the people who own the brand or something like that, and you've just got to be able to just talk, and then obviously make sure everyone's comfortable, and you know, shooting, and, you know, you don't want to sit there in the corner quiet, not talking. You know, you're all there to have fun. You're all there to do a job, and you want it all to be a bit more.
It makes a big difference on the day, and you get, because some days they can be quite long, and it can be a bit tedious if it's like an e-com or anything like that, and it's a bit very repetitive. And like you say, if you do have a team or some people, it's that bit of that silent. I mean, especially nowadays, there's a lot of like automatic on the phone and people, and it can be quite closed off. So I think if you're that sort of person already, and you, like I say, you're quite sort of confident and
keeping the energy up.
Having that on set.
It can be, as you say, like on e-com shoots and things like that, it can be really, you know, and it, as you say, repetitive, and everyone's a bit. So I like to think I come onto set and I'm like, hello. Some people can't be bothered with it. They're like, shut up. And I'm like,
well, I think it's also that of like it carrying on to people remember that for like hiring people again and getting them on shoots and having that sort of personality and that, just making it feel like nice and happy and sort of warm and stuff. I think it's naturally you want those sort of people on shoots anyway. So I think it's a nice thing to have.
I think as a model, you need that. Then people, and it reflects then in the pictures that you're taking. If you're very subdued and low energy and things like that, it shows, especially with me. If I'm like losing energy throughout the day, it shows in my face and in the pictures. And I think if you're a bit more lively and you're working with people who bring that out in you, it shows in the pictures. It's very microscopic. I think it's very, but it change, you know. But it definitely shows in the photography.
Well, we've got into the modeling there. So how did it, going from like sort of growing up, how did you then start getting into modeling?
So I growing up, I wouldn't say I was very academic. I really struggled in school, and I loved art. And that was the only thing that I ever succeeded in. And I would just get A's and A stars, and I loved it, obviously, because I knew I could do it. But I knew I would always do something creative. And I remember being in A level and doing photography, and I loved that. And I just thought, I just want to work with cameras. And I went into fashion design in uni, and then basically I ended up getting scouted, and because I never thought I'd be able to be a model. I thought I'll work behind the camera 100%.
What was it that made you think I wouldn't be?
I think because obviously, like I'm only 5'5", so I think it's quite hard to get yourself into the modeling scene when you're quite short, and I always thought that would limit me. And I always thought that it was like certain body types and certain body shapes, and you know, and I thought I would never ever be able to do that. And then I ended up getting scouted. I think it was during that original 3-month lockdown. I think I went in a week to meet them a week before we went into lockdown, and that's where it all started. Because originally what happened was I shot with a photographer called William Clark, based in Liverpool, and that was my first ever shoot, and the first time I was ever behind a camera, and I was basically covered in glitter. It was a really, the pictures are I don't even remember where they are now, but I shot with him, and I remember him saying, like, I can't believe you've never been behind a camera before. And that's where I kind of thought, maybe I could do this. Maybe I got the taste for it then, and I thought maybe I could, and then I got scouted and I couldn't believe it. And then obviously over the years, as my confidence has built up and I've sort of got more of a knowledge around modeling and working with photographers and, art directors and things like that, I would say that I have a place in the industry.
Well, it makes a big, like the fact you say like doing it and you've enjoyed it, and that makes a big difference. Did you? Well, like you mentioned that first shoot. So when you did that one, did it feel like it kind of came quite naturally? Because you mentioned the photographer mentioning, "Oh, how have you not done it before? You're doing it so well." Did it feel like? Did you do that first shoot and feel really nervous or feel awkward, or did it just feel natural?
It felt natural. I think I've always been quite photogenic. If even when I was little, I look at the pictures and I think, oh my god, I was definitely bound to be a model. I was such a poser.
Yeah.
I think you've got to naturally be quite confident, and I always was. Like even I look back at videos of me when I was a toddler, and I was very outgoing and very confident. And I think you've got to be like that to be a model, an actor, actress, anything like that. You've got to have that confidence on a camera. I think it came naturally to me. I think I always would have been modeling, but yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to be. Yeah. And did you when you were in those early days of doing it, and then you got scouted? So when you got agency signed, did you do any kind of like training, or did you like look into it? Any ways of doing it, like with like learning how to model, doing poses or anything like that?
I think well, this is where my art comes in, because I remember going to Italy, and I studied a lot of Italian art, and obviously like things like the rules of three and looking at proportions, and I think that definitely plays a lot into modeling, and I think that's the only sort of research that I've done. It's just how natural. What can I say? No, but I'm very lucky. I've worked with a lot of photographers who are very good at what they do and have taught me a lot. And obviously, with the artistic background, composition and things like that, and knowing where to place yourself in in the picture. I know it sounds very technical, but when you're working with a photographer and you don't know how to move, or you don't know, I always ask, I go, how close is the crop, or what is the composition, or how much shoulders. I do a lot of beauty, so I work sort of shoulders up, so it's understanding where the light's coming from, and how that's going to look on your face, and how that's going to look within the composition of the image. I think a lot of my artistic background feeds into that, because I like to think photographers are artists. Years ago you'd paint a picture, now you click a button, but it's still the same principle. It's still the composition, and the it's still the same. Looking at the light, it's still the same. And I think when you're the subject, you've got to understand that as well.
Yeah.
And I think it helps a lot with the photographer as well. I like to think there's always that, I'm not just sitting there and they're taking a picture of me, I'm working with them. If you're doing something artistic, it's that sort of partnership.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, that of, like, say, from your side, of that of knowing kind of a bit with the process of like not necessarily like how the photographer wants the image to look, but knowing that all the sort of stuff that comes together to make it look good.
Yeah.
And it can make a big difference then from your side of what you're bringing to it. So I hadn't considered that. Yeah, it's a very very interesting point to make of that. So yeah, we'll jump to the first image.
Okay.
And we'll go back through. Before we do that first one, just I'll mention my notes as well. So you're living in Chester.
I live in Chester.
Just briefly, what's that like to you?
Chester's so small. It's so cute. It's a really lovely place. It's a really lovely place to live. It's really historical. I don't know if anyone knows anything about Chester, but it's a historical, like it's Roman and it's Tudor and it's all. So I've grown up in a really, really lovely city, and obviously, as I say, all my family live there. I think I've got one cousin that lives away, and she's just had a baby, so that's torture because I love her so much. But yeah, and I enjoy living there, but I would like to move. As I was saying, I'd love to move to London, but it's a really quaint little city. So yeah,
it'd be quite a jump.
It would be.
London.
Oh my God! Every time I go down to London, I stand there and I'm like, I have to take a few minutes just to take it all in, because you just don't know what's coming for you at any angle. I just go to London. I hope I come back alive.
I always come back to London and then just feel really tired. But yeah. It's good to do every now and again.
Yeah.
It's quite a jump. So yeah, let's go into that first image. I've got them up on here for you. So we'll cover this one, the black and white sort of side-on image. So who was that with?
So that was with a photographer called Logan Gray, and she's based in Manchester. And I think this was one of my first test shoots actually. And I remember it was like shot in like a sort of garage kind of place. There was like a garage outside, and it was really. She's absolutely brilliant. I think she's a really, really amazing photographer. She's very, very talented. And yeah, I think I turned up and I was styling myself. I think that's like a £20 Primark coat that I bought in my first year of uni. It looks good. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, so I think I was definitely bringing in my sort of fashion degree there, using it somehow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think she's very good with. I think she did very well with the use of light here, and I love a black and white image.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a few from that one, and then I mean, I just like the kind of the composition that, like the side, even like the hand up on the knee and all that sort of stuff, and the head side on.
Yeah.
What was I think we've featured a few of like Logan's shoots as well. What was she very kind of directional, or was
she's very good. She's very, when I think back, like she's one of those photographers that will give you direction, but if you're doing it, as I say, it's great. Well. And she was so lovely. I remember because I think we were shooting in. Do you know the band, the Blossoms?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was their sort of studio.
Okay. Yeah, because they're Manchester band.
Yeah. So I remember walking in, and I love the Blossoms, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in the studio. But yeah, so she styled me on some images, and then I brought some bits to style myself. But yeah, no, I think especially with, as I say, with like the way that I've positioned myself, it's, I like lines, I like things to look proportioned and everything. So I think definitely those pictures show.
Well, like we was just saying as well about from your kind of the artistic side and that's what I mean. I think it does help as well, of like if you've got a model a lot, that sort of stuff of knowing like what good stuff can look like, and so when you're doing those, to have that in the back of your thought and being like, as you're doing the sort of the position, like with that, because there's even stuff again where it's like the off center, but like you say, like the sort of lines and all this sort of stuff. And I think it might just be stuff that you naturally start creating yourself as you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's what. But as I say, like it needs to look pleasing to the eye. If you look at a picture and it's like mathematically, like it automatically looks, draws you in. And I think there's nothing worse than, obviously, I think a model working with a photographer and it's like pulling teeth, and then the photographer's really having to direct the model. I think as a model, you've got a job to understand what the photographer wants from, that's what you're being hired for. And I don't think people realize how I don't want to say that modeling is technical, because it's not. It's like, you know, you turn up and, you know, but I think to work best with photographers, I think you've really got to understand photography. And I think because of that background, that's why I enjoy it. And like my background in art, like it's just it all crosses over. And I think that's, yeah, I love, that's why I love modeling more than anything, and it's working with photographers. And I think I probably should have been a photographer, I think, but you know, I ended up going into modeling. So but yeah, so I think I bring that in definitely with my pictures.
Well, I think like you're saying today, like with some of the models as well, there's that definitely that thing of you've got to bring something to it. And I feel like the ones who do like really stand out and make like when you're shooting, it does make a difference. You notice it in the poses. It's like, say, it's the ones who do turn up and sort of bring something to it and kind of bring their own ideas as well. Because that's the way I feel like when I'm shooting as well. I'll try and give like bits of direction, but I think there is something nice in letting it flow a bit. And
you want to bounce off each other, because it's creative, and that's what it is. And you know, it's, as I say, like it is about, you know, you've got it to create. You've got to, you know, let it flow, and it's hard when obviously the model's just there and they don't know what they're doing, and then the photographer's trying to get it out of them, and you know, obviously there's always going to be that little bit of direction. But I think if you have you know, you understand, then it just happens. And they're the best shoots. They're the best shoots. And you know, you look at the images at the end and you're like getting excited, and you're like, ah!
Well, like I say, it shows, and when you get ones like this as well, because that's like, again, like picking out some of these, it's like it does make a big difference. We'll go on to number 2, which was the fragrance image.
Oh yeah.
Well, like this one, well, there's a few reasons. I mean, obviously, like, there's the facial expression as well, and there's just a lot that jumps out. So again, like, who was this one with?
Well, this is very, very, very special one, actually, because this was taken by James Malloy, who is actually a makeup artist, and he owns My Kitco, and he is probably one of the most special people in my life. I love him to bits, and his whole team. And I think out of anyone I've ever shot with, I've learned the most from him. So basically he just asked me one day to come and do some like content with him, and he's one of those people who can just do anything, and he's taken loads and loads of pictures of me in the past, but we did this image. I'm trying to think now. So it was kind of like, because I think at the time he was a makeup artist for Dior. I'm not sure if he is still now, but so he had this Miss Dior bottle, and I said, oh my God, I'd love to do a little, you know, and he kind of did like a Audrey Hepburn makeup look on me, and we threw my hair up, and then I just sort of held it over my eye and pulled that expression. So
where did that come? Was that just your thought of, I'm just gonna
well, obviously it's looking, I think I looked at, like, I've obviously observed like adverts and things like that. I think modeling is a lot of observation and there's obviously an element of acting. And if you observe, I look at other models and I look at other shoots and things like that, and I bring that into my own, you know, modeling. And the thing is, he created like a space for me to try these things, and I'm always grateful for that. Any photographer that just lets me try something different, I think it's great. But I love that man to bits. Honestly, he's got me further in my modeling career than anyone, and he's always one of those people who's there that you can't do it. I'm like, I can't. He's like, yes, you can. I'm like, okay.
And is he someone you regularly see or shoot with?
I shoot with him all the time, and any time he asks me to shoot or work with him is just a treat. But he owns a brand called My Kitco, and they do like makeup brushes. So I do a lot for him in terms of his like for his campaigns, and yeah, and he's just like, he's so creative. He is one of those people who just does create all the time, makeup, photography, his brand, he's creating all these brushes, and he's just, yeah, he's like, just, I love him. I really look up to him.
So does he do the makeup and the photography?
Makeup and photography.
Super talented.
Oh my God. I just, the things he does, even because I remember talking to his husband once, and we were both standing there and we were looking at him and we were like, how can somebody possibly just do all that? He does all the, like, the touching up of the image, everything. He's like, and the hair. I sit there and I'm like,
doing modeling as well.
Well, he does that as well. He gets in on the images and everything. So
super talented.
Yeah, very, very talented man.
With like you say, you do a lot of beauty shoots as well. That's a lot of work. I was going to say, do you prefer beauty shoots? Obviously, you do them a lot. Is there a preference?
I think as a model, everyone has their niche, and there's going to be some sort of style that you are sort of, you gravitate towards more. And I definitely think beauty is my niche. I mean, I love all modeling, anything, all of it. But I think modeling, like beauty shoots and beauty brands, is definitely my niche and what I'm good at. And I know that I can walk onto a set and I can get good beauty images because of the practice that I've had. I do so much of it and I enjoy it. I love it. So, and it's mainly because of James Malloy, because he like was the first person to really do beauty with me, and we did it all the time. I think I've only been working with him for about, it feels like years, but it's only been about 2 or 3. But that's probably where I learned how to model, and I learned how to move, and I learned all my angles and my good and bad side and things like that, Well, that's the thing. I know I walk onto sets and they go, do you have a good side? And I know exactly which, and you just end up getting the pictures like quicker and that's that's all anyone wants, isn't it?
Yeah. And so he helped you with those.
Definitely, he's helped me develop.
Has he helped you with the beauty one specific? Like, is it the kind of like the poses and all that stuff, or just?
I think obviously giving me that opportunity to experiment. I think, as I said, I'm not an actress. I wouldn't know the first thing about stepping onto a stage and reeling off Shakespeare, but there's definitely an element of acting in modeling. It's not just standing there. You've got to show emotions, or you've got to show expressions. And obviously, when I'm in a space where somebody allows me to do that and I can experiment, it means that when I'm on sets with clients, I'm confident enough to just throw that into the mix. And then they go, oh yeah, I like that, do that again, or could you do that, or could you maybe do that a bit softer or a bit more, and I think having that sort of array of sort of poses and things like that.
It's something like that I think is really important. It's equipping you for when you go into those jobs and stuff. To be able, like you say, to work with James and do that, it gives you the chance to experiment, like you're saying.
Experiment. I think that's the best thing you can do with modeling, is experimenting, and because you don't want to walk onto a set and do something and then them like, oh, that's terrible, don't do that again. But you want to and have that there, and then obviously you can put it in your portfolio, and then people see that you can do, and you have the confidence. A lot of models don't have the confidence to do things like that, to do different types of poses. And I know in the beginning I certainly wasn't confident enough. I just it was a bit sort of, my go-to pose was the side. And then as I've met more people and I've worked with more photographers, and they let you do things like that, you just get a bit more comfortable, like you do in any sort of job or anything really. You just get more comfortable and better at it, and then
so great. A bit of a jump. So one of them was about how would you define your own style?
My own style. I think certainly my own style. I've got a lot of people say they're scared of me because I have a very sort of fierce kind of look. I think I get it from my dad. It's that very, I think that's the look that a lot of people go for. It's very, I think it's very glam, but very harsh. And a lot of people say that, that's quite scary. And I've noticed that a lot of photographers that I've worked with have asked for that. They do go, that look that you do? And I go, the scary one. And they go, that's the one. I go, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's certainly my trademark look. I think, brands book you out because of something you have that's different. And I think definitely the scary look. I mean, as I say, like I worked with James Malloy, and I remember shooting once, and he was like, "Can you just like look as if you like like me?" And I went, "Okay." And yeah, so I think that's definitely my sort of trademark look, that scary look. But I think, yeah, I'm not sure. I think in modeling, any look is, I kind of go with whatever is suited more towards the brand or more towards the sort of the look of what the photographer wants.
Yeah. So you've got to have that little that versatility.
Versatility, definitely. But I think, yeah, because I've got those eyes that just
piercing eyes.
Yeah, look, everyone says you look scary, and I go, I know.
Yeah. With your modeling, is there any limits? Is there anything you would object to doing?
I think obviously with being a woman, you get asked a lot to do like nude images. Now, I think I'm very aware of the fine line between being artistic and then something crossing over into something a little bit more sort of almost pornographic. And when I went into modeling, I always said to myself, I think I was about 20, and I always said to myself, I'm never going to put myself in a position where I would be worried about myself. Now I'm 24, and I have learned to say no, and I'm a lot more sure of myself. And certainly, I'm experimenting a bit more now, and I'm a bit more confident. And there are more sort of there are times now that I've been working where I remember doing a shoot a few months ago, and a lot more was on show, but it's whether it's that it's not crossing that fine line between it being artistic and then crossing over into it being sexy and cheap. And not that that there's a problem with that, but personally, for me, I'm not comfortable with doing really, really sexy things because I want my look to stay really like classy, but I don't, I think that's why I just draw the line at where it goes over,
you've got your kind of your sort of area of what sort of it would fall into and what to stick to with it.
Because as a model, I'm okay with anything. You've got to understand that when you are a model, you're selling your image, and that includes your body and but it's good to know where your boundaries are. And I know when I want to say no, and it's about having that communication with your agent or with the client or with the photographer. That's where the line is, and that's where I'm not going to go any further. And obviously, I'm so lucky I've never had an experience where I've been made to feel uncomfortable. And I've always worked with photographers who have always been very, very, clear. If you're uncomfortable, let me know. And I've always, I'm happy that I've never had one of those experiences. But there is a very fine line between it being artistic and then,
Well, that's like, I think, like you said as well, about, especially that when you got started with it, and like, so you were 20, but sort of kind of establishing that sort of stuff in your head early on, and these sort of rules and sort of stuff you're going to stick to?
Yeah. I mean, I know 20. I know 20 is not young, but I was aware that I was naive, and I thought to myself, I'm never going to put myself in one of those situations where I am kind of maybe not okay with it, but I didn't have the confidence to say I'm and I think it's, especially when you're early on in your career, you kind of want to do anything, you want to, but so I just didn't do it until I knew that I was sure of myself, and now I'm strong enough. And I'm only 4 years down the line, but I can turn around and go, I don't want to do that, or I'm happy doing that as long as it's this, that, and the other, or as long I think you've got to have a lot of sort of authority when it comes to those things. And then people don't push.
You give them the fierce look.
That's the scary look. It switches on.
Is there anything with any types of brands or anything like types of items? Because I know I asked Lauren and she mentioned about sort of fur or stuff like that, or anything that you.
Of course.
Any kind of types of products or anything.
I think obviously it's. I think when it comes to those sort of things, it's a no-brainer. I think it's. I don't want to ever represent a brand that kind of is promoting any sort of cruelty, especially with makeup. Brands like that, and any brand that is, I think nowadays, obviously, that you've got cancel culture and things like that. I think as a model, if you align yourself with those sort of brands that do test on animals or use fur, or I don't know, even brands that are known for body shaming or things like that, I think as a model, it's your responsibility to say no and not even work with them, and then they have no choice but to change. And I think so many brands nowadays are quite good. They're on the ball with those things, and I think we're having a bit of a shift, especially now. From if you look even in 10 years ago at the way models were, look at Heroin Chic and things like that, and now, oh my God, wouldn't even no one would put up with that now. And I think everything's changing so much and so quick, but I'm kind of glad I've gone into modeling at this point, where it is all changing, and brands are waking up a bit, and so. Well,
it's like so even with the time as well of where it is now, but it's definitely stuff like that where it's given people a bit more of a voice to sort of to say no to that sort of stuff, and like you were saying as well about from the modeling side to be able to have a voice to be like, no, I'm not doing that, or if it's an agency and saying to the brand or something. So I think the time when as well that it has give people a lot more, freedom to sort of speak up,
and that's how it should be. It should be, I don't think it would be awful if any model felt like they were having to do something they didn't want to do, or they were having to work with a brand that they really didn't align with, or things like that. And I think it's about, when you're a model, you have a personal brand. As I say, lots of brands use models because of who they are and what they represent. It's not kind of years ago where you have a portfolio and that's what you present. You've got, nowadays you've got influencers, and you've got your Instagram, and you curate your Instagram around who you want to be seen as, and then brands buy into that. And I think that's a huge thing. So you've got to really watch what you do and who you shoot with and how you shoot. And in order to not sort of almost typecast yourself, you want to just show that you can do anything and you're open to anything, but within reason.
And like I say, it's like I say as a model, you are a brand, and that as well. It's building that image around yourself. You want to be associated with the right things. Yeah, definitely. Okay, we'll do image 3. which is this one.
Yes.
Yeah, I love this one. Well, I love them all, but this was so yeah. Again, like who was this one?
So this was Barry Jeffries, and he's a London-based photographer, and I think he's, as I said, I think he's shot portraits of the Queen. He's a fashion and beauty photographer. But this was for it was a hair styling job, and I turned up, and they curled my hair to within an inch of its life. It was like Shirley Temple on speed.
There's
honestly.
A lot of curls going
and then they like pulled it up and had really dramatic makeup and really good styling. And I think you can even see here the difference between, like, if you look at my first image, which is one of my first sort of shoots, and then like the expression that I'm using there is a lot more, you know, sort of. I think what I usually do is I look at what I'm wearing, my makeup and my hair, and then I think, then, is this scary? Is this getting, you know, you look at, you're
building a character around that.
That's what I say. It's about building that sort of aligning your look. What are you going to do, and how are you going to deliver that image? Because obviously I don't want to stand there and be all like, it's not one of those images, you know. I'm not going to sit there and be all soft and smiley. It's a very, there was harsh makeup. My hair was very punky. My styling was really edgy. So you're going to want to deliver that in a very, edgy way.
One of the questions we're going to ask at the end is, I'll always ask is, like, about if you've got any advice for models. I think something like, we'll go back to that. I think that's something. It's quite a good point of like we're saying about what you bring to it. But it's a good advice for models of, again, it's not just turning up and being, oh, I know I do this well, or I do that. You're adapting it to what?
You've got to be, oh my God, you've got to be a chameleon.
Yeah. So you're adapting it to the style of the shoot, the mood board, anything, and being like, it's not that type of shoot. It's a different sort of thing I need to bring to it.
Yeah.
And like this, I mean, you can see more when you zoom in, but because one thing I was going to say was, like you're saying about there, like because on that image, I think you've got, like, is it like your tongue's kind of, it's a bit like provocative and that, but it's like, it kind of goes with the, so again, stuff like that, that's what I was going to say. With that, was that something that, was that told to you to do, or was that something you did yourself?
That was something I did myself. I think I draw a lot of my inspiration from other models and actresses. And I think I've always been, I love film. And I watch actresses, and I watch them in different ways, the way they, the ways that they play the characters, and I bring that into, my modeling. And I think that I just did that. And I think he took the picture, and they were okay with it.
Well, now that's what I mean about it working for. It all goes with the, like, everything, like the styling, the hair, the light, all that. And that's what I mean about, if you would have just been there and just done like the smiley pose, or just like straight, it's that sort of thing where you can see all the, I feel like that's kind of like a key example image of like all the elements coming together.
Yeah.
From the photographer side, the light and the style, and then from the model side of that, what you're saying there about, I'm not just turning up and pose it, I'm bringing something to it that matches the.
You've got to deliver it. You've got to bring it all to life. You've got the hairstylist that does one thing, and then, the makeup artist and then the stylist, and then you've got to stand there and bring that all together and deliver it and present it in a way that is aligned with what they're looking for. And it was that was one of my favorite shoots, really. And he's an incredible photographer. I remember we taking the pictures, and that's why photographers always, they amaze me, because we took the picture and then I looked on the monitor and it looked like that, and I just didn't understand how it just looked. So his use of light and the way it was all, it's like the light's down one side of my face, and it's just brilliant.
Well, I think that's one of the things whether you do or whether you do you remember how it was set up? Do you remember? Because that light, that kind of streak behind you, but then you're lit separately to that.
I wouldn't have remembered. I don't think I can remember the way it was set up, but I am looking more at things like that. I'm like, how has this been set up? Because I think, honestly, I think photographers are incredible, the way that they can create the lights and things like that, and how it all bounces, and they're like, it's, I sit there and I'm like,
it becomes like very complex.
It is. I think a photographer's job is very complex, and and then so I think it's important as a model then to stand there and get the picture. And it always makes me happy when the photographer turns around and goes, I'd love to work with you again, and he did say that.
I can see why.
I was like, oh god.
No, it worked. It looked like a really good shoot. This was one you wanted to talk about as well. These were in London.
I just thought this was a very interesting shoot. I think because this is taken by my friend Ricky, and he's like he only shoots film, and it's like in the moment. And this was on, I don't know, some bridge in London, and I was putting my heels on, and he just took the picture, and it's one of my favorite pictures. And we basically just went round London, and he just took pictures of me, and it was all, his photography is very in the moment. So like, it's so different from walking onto a studio and everything's set up and the lighting's set up. When you're doing location and you're walking around and you've got maybe, the weather, the light, and like, you've got to be able to really kind of reel off kind of the images that you want. And like, a lot of it was it was the best shoot. I really need to shoot with him again. I love him to bits. So yeah, it was really, it was so different because I'm so used to working in studios from like here up. So it was really nice to do something that was a lot more organic, and obviously like in the moment, and the photographer's really like looking at you and just taking, moments. And and it was brilliant. Do
you feel like it kind of pushes out the comfort zone a bit? Like I say, you used to do in the studio a lot and stuff.
But as I talk about that versatility and being able to work in and out of a studio and on locations. And I mean, a lot of the pictures from that shoot, we were shooting on the underground and like, like in front of the trains. It was so, he's incredible. He's really, really cool. And I love that as well. I love working with photographers who do things differently. And, when anyone ever approaches me and that it's like something completely different, I'm like, yes, I'll do it. I love it. I love when people, are trying something different. I'm never opposed to anyone that wants to do something different, because I love modeling, and I love doing different things all the time. And trying different things. And maybe because that's my artistic background, it's that sort of, it's playing around, and that sort of ability to mess around and play and try different things and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, there's so many shoots I've done that I've got back that didn't work. And, I think, well, I know not to do that again, or, and it's like, that process. But yeah, that is one of the shoots I really, really do love.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like you say, with that, I think kind of looking at it that way as being like the ones, if you do get ones that haven't worked, it's all sort of a learning process, it's all stuff that helps you develop and sort of knowing what to do next time and everything as well. And I think, I do like we've put that one because it's like, I quite like, again, you've got like the dress, it's like quite sort of elegant stuff, and then you've got the graffiti, it's like that kind of like,
well, that's the thing. Well, he placed me there on the bridge, and I think because I styled myself in this one as well, and I think a lot of people do say that I have like a very classic look. And so I thought, if we're shooting in London, I had this like long dress on, and it's got like this piece of like long material that comes from the shoulder. And I thought, well, that's very, dressy. And, you wouldn't wear that in London. It's completely, heels and everything. So yeah, and I think that sort of clash of those two, that really elegant sort of almost, really dressed up, really against that sort of urban backdrop.
Grungy sort of, that's what I mean. Like looking at, that's what kind of jumped out to me. That contradiction, that little mix is like works really well. I think. We'll do last couple of questions just to finish on. One was like anything you'd like to do in the near future, any types of shoots, or to work with brands or anything like that. Anything that you want to do.
Oh, where's my list? I mean, God, brands. You know, I'm so lucky to work with any brand. I think any brand that approaches me and wants to work with me, I'm so lucky. But I think I wouldn't really be able to think of a brand off the top of my head, but I think like definitely like photography wise, I would love to do more sort of shoots that are a bit like the Third Image.
Curly hair.
Curly, a bit more sort of like anything that entails a little bit more acting and a little bit more production and things like that. I mean, I love doing normal sort of glam beauty, but I love anything where I do have to have a bit of a character for, and I can play around. I think that's because that's what I enjoy. But even like the last image, like with Ricky, things like that, I think, you know, location shoots and I don't think I'll ever stop experimenting with modeling. I think that's, you know, one of those things, but I think that, I don't know. I think as long as I'm always shooting, I'm happy.
Well, I was about to say, I think that's a sign that, you know, you enjoy what you're doing, and when it's something you just want to be constantly doing and constantly experimenting and trying different stuff. I think, if it's something, it doesn't feel like work, it feels like, you enjoy it.
100%. People always ask me, people say like, what are your hobbies? And I don't have hobbies, because my life and what I do is my hobby, because I don't believe in doing something then doing a hobby on the side. If you love it that much, do it. And, you know, I think I'm a firm believer in always doing what you love. And I have no interest in doing something I hate. Maybe that is because I do come from that Italian background where they live for life, and they, you know, I don't ever want to do anything that I don't enjoy. And I certainly have that sort of mindset. I only ever want to enjoy what I do, and it shows. And I think that definitely comes through.
And the last one, as we mentioned about the last question I'll finish on is advice. So if there's any advice for any of the models?
My God,
we've touched over a lot of it.
I think obviously, as we've touched upon it, I think just understanding yourself as a model, and just like things like how it all works. I know, because a lot of people, I think modeling is like turning up, getting your hair and makeup done, sitting there in front of a camera, but it's not. And I think when you really want to do it and you want to do it well, you've got to understand the whole works that go into it. And as I say, like, bring a little bit of acting in, bring a little bit of, you know, look at actresses or models that you like, and it's a lot about it's a lot of it rests upon, like, I think observation. I look at people and I watch people and I bring it in, and I think, you know, I think that's just how I've always worked. And things like obviously understanding light and the photographers and being able to bounce off a photographer and work with them. I think that's the only advice I can really give, because it really sets you apart. It really, if you work well, and, you know, because modeling it's one of those things, you're in the modeling industry, every other girl in the modeling industry is good looking and is pretty, and you've got to really, really stand out. And a lot of the time, like me, I'm short, you know, I'm not, you know, 5'10", I'm not, so you've got to really stand out and show brands and photographers why you work well and offer that, you know, because, you know, it's not just about turning up and taking a picture. I believe it is about really, you know, setting yourself aside and So
That's good advice. Yeah, like I say, we touched on it a lot, and it's that's good advice. Yeah, that's everything.
Oh,
thanks, Isabella. Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Thanks for taking the time to do it.